and then he'll go soon. All right. Good afternoon. This is Jeremy, Grant Staff with Coffee with Jeremy. I'm so glad everybody was able to join us. We apologize. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties on our side, and so just really appreciate your patience and happy to be here today. We're still hoping to be joined by one of our other guests today, but we're so excited, Amy, that you could be joining us. And so, Amy, welcome from Grand Island. Amy is a key person in the Nebraska Walkable Communities Project, and we had Brian on, and we featured people from Hastings as well. And so it's so appropriate, Amy, that we're coming to you guys in Grand Island next, because you've got so much great work that's happening there. And so thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, not a problem. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Well, so we'll get to the project in just a moment, but just a reminder to our viewers, you can always ask your questions or leave comments in the chat box on YouTube if you're watching us there live. You can also send your questions in via Twitter at hashtag CoffeeWithJeremy, or even using the hashtag WalkNE tag or hashtag WalkGI tag. So there's lots of hashtags you can use today to communicate with us. If you're watching us live, we appreciate it. Tell your friends, share it, and let's get more people watching. So Amy, you and I were first introduced last year, actually maybe over about a year and a half ago, at the steering committee for the Nebraska Walkable Communities Project, and it's really when it kicked off. And so tell us a little bit about, well, I think what I'll do first is I'll just say a little bit about the project, and then what I'd like for you to tell us about is how did you get engaged in that, and how did that start for you? Sure. So before she goes, as you may have remember from our past episodes, the Nebraska Walkable Communities Project is all about creating more walkable, bikeable, and healthy communities. And it's all about engaging people in the process to get that to work. So we have 3 points to the purpose. The first is working with local communities like Grand Island to help them create and execute and implement plans to increase walking, biking, and overall health. The second is to create on-the-ground successes, like what you're going to hear Amy talk about in a little bit, from like we're already seeing in the project. And then the third is to have a steering committee that really serves as that backbone body to help guide the project and support the leaders as, like Amy, as they're going through the strategic planning processes and even through implementation. So that's a little bit about the project. And Amy, let me turn it over to you. So how did you and the Central District Health Department come to get engaged in this particular project?
Yeah. So our health department a couple of years ago now received a grant that we refer to as 1422. And within 1422, one of the areas of focus is community walkability. So at Central District, I'm kind of the key person that's focusing on the walkability side of things. So that's kind of where I became involved. Was through that work and working on that grant side of things.
So what made it appealing for you guys? Is it just about getting people walking more and being recreational, or is there like, from your perspective, I should say, is there a larger picture for you?
Yeah, I think kind of the larger picture is just looking at kind of the overall health of our community and realizing that we definitely have some areas for improvement. Not only our community struggles with it, but across the country, obesity and chronic diseases are a big issue here. So we saw walkability as one of those pieces or one of those ways that we could create a healthier community overall. So that's kind of our big picture goal. But then as we've gone along, we've seen so many other benefits that can happen when you create a more walkable and bikeable community. So those are all adding on to our initial goal of creating a healthier community.
Awesome. Absolutely awesome. And I always love when I get to hear about the big picture, because I think sometimes people who aren't in this field, they really do think that it's just about like getting people to walk more, and that it's all about pushing that health piece. So you've actually got two kind of roles that you, I think, would say that you play on the project. One is more of a steering committee member, and helping to guide that work and provide help to other communities that are going through the process as well. And then you've got kind of the role that you play for the health department with respect to your own planning that you guys have done in Grand Island. So talk to me first about what it was like to go through the planning process, and then we'll talk about what came out of that. So for you, as you guys, you worked through a design team and then brought it to the summit, how did that go for you? What was that like for you? And kind of outline maybe for people how you guys did that.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, this work really kind of started last year. Last July was when we had our first design team meeting. And at that time, it was kind of just really new for the community, not really knowing what we were getting into, so to speak. But it was really exciting to bring different stakeholders together that I hadn't worked with before, or the health department hadn't worked with before, and just realizing that all of us have a lot of similar interests that can all be kind of worked through walkability. So having that group get together was really exciting, and then spent the rest of that summer just really promoting and trying to get a greater number of community members to come to what we call the Grand Island Walking and Biking Summit, which was last November.
Yeah, you had 50 to 60 people who came and attended the summit, and they came together, I think it was for 7 hours.
Yep.
And went through a series of activities in order to create their action plan. So what were some of the key areas of action that came out of it for your team?
Kind of the number one action item or action area was funding, which we've heard all along is kind of that main issue or main area that we always want to work on, trying to get more funding to do walkability. But then two other big ones, in Grand Island there's a lot of interest in expanding our hike and bike trail system, so that was kind of the next top action item. And then another one is complete streets, which we are currently working on. So I'm trying to pass a complete streets policy for the city of Grand Island, and then just increasing awareness of not only what we currently have for hike and bike trails, but just kind of the benefits in general of walking and walkability, and also biking.
So Amy, tell me, so it sounds like you guys are doing a lot of good stuff, and I know I was writing up today a little bit of kind of the overall. I'm sorry, we've got some feedback happening. I'm trying to make that stop. There we go. So just looking at some of the pieces of success that you guys have had, you have created your community as far as like created teams that were executing things and making it happen. Sorry, I could have done a better job of wording that. And so how have the action teams worked for you guys? Have they made it easier to create volunteer engagement points, for example, and what has that been like?
Yeah, so once we got those action items out of the summit, that's kind of how we organized our action teams, was based on these kind of top items, and then we added on a few, or added on an additional one as we went. But I think the most helpful thing has been just keeping the momentum going, regularly meeting and talking about these issues, and just really getting the word out to the rest of the community. Just in the last few months, I've talked to some organizations and individuals that I hadn't really known were interested in this area, such as our Economic Development Corporation. So that's been really helpful, just keeping the momentum going, and then helping to bring on new stakeholders and new perspectives as we've been moving along.
Now, in addition to the work that you're doing in your local community, you've also been helping to support the steering committee. So tell us a little bit more about how you've been plugging in to help the steering committee.
Sure. So the steering committee has been really helpful to have kind of that broader state perspective on what's going on, to kind of frame it locally, to know, hey, we're not the only city that's working on this. And then just to be able to have that time to kind of share our stories between communities, to know, what are some best practices or successes that we've been having across the state, and maybe thinking of ways that we can replicate that locally. That's been really helpful too, just to have that sharing time and knowing that there's support across the state and not just in our individual communities.
Excellent. And did we get Nikki on the line with us yet?
Okay. She did try to call me.
Okay. All right. I'll go and double check that piece. John, have you gotten any questions or comments that you want to bring in from the chat?
None yet, Jeremy. People have been in and out.
Okay.
Yeah, but
excellent. Well, people, we definitely want to hear your questions, and so make sure you get those in. We'll have an opportunity for Amy to talk a little bit more if you guys give us some questions to address. So what do you want to know from Amy as someone who's used this process and been going through this collaborative-driven process? Excuse me. Amy, tell me, so, one of the things that I have heard a lot as we're doing this work in Nebraska is, wow, we're getting so much, engagement from people and so forth. What has the way that we've ran the project and the way that we've ran the process, how has that worked for you? And what is the value that you feel you've gotten from that, if any?
Yeah. Yeah, as I kind of mentioned, I think that the biggest thing that I've seen is just all the different partnerships that we have developed up until probably this particular grant or this particular work. Our health department hadn't really been collaborating with like the Economic Development Corporation or the Transportation Department within the city of Grand Island. So we've really developed these brand new partnerships that I think are going to be really helpful just moving forward, not only with this project, but any future projects that we have. So I would say partnerships have been kind of a big outcome, not just looking at the individual projects or the walkability, but stakeholders and partnership engagement.
Excellent. Has there ever been an activity that we've done that was really good for you or that really inspired you or was a game changer for you as you think about some of the stuff? Because you've been in a lot of meetings with me, Amy.
I have, yes. Yeah. I think it's been really helpful. Some of the action planning meetings, coming up with, like, taking a day and getting all of these action plans created, I think is really exciting. I just know from local work that that type of planning can take a long time unless you have a process that is really kind of laid out for you and organized. So I think that the action plan part of things is very helpful to get some work going in a short amount of time.
Well, and Amy, I was actually just reflecting as you were saying that, and I remember you and I at your summit talking right between the open space session where it was a lot of brainstorming all over the place and the action planning, and you're like, wow, I don't know if this is going to make it into an action plan. And I have to tell you, that is always one of the exciting parts for me too, is when you take that brainstorm and you're able to prioritize it and make it work. So you guys have been doing a lot of stuff. You have got, if I remember correctly, you actually were able to dissolve one of your action teams because they achieved their action so quickly.
Yes.
And created that the Jumbo Bike Head Committee.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, so that was one of our kind of add-on action teams, was to create a bicycle and pedestrian subcommittee within our metropolitan planning organization at the city. And that was created, so that was the goal of that whole group. So we were able to kind of say, we're done, since we had met our goal. So that was really exciting.
Well, and I think that's one thing that you guys have done well, Amy, along the way, is you've created some short-term wins.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was one that you can kind of take back and celebrate from the first quarter. And then the second quarter, you hosted a Complete Streets training, which we were talking about a couple episodes ago. So, and so what did you, when you think back on the Complete Streets training, what came out of that for you guys?
Mm-hmm. I think it gave us kind of a shared understanding of what it is. I think prior to that, we had kind of some definitions and some understanding, but that training really helped us all be on the same page. So I'm excited to bring more people that information and get more people kind of on our same page as far as what is Complete Streets. So that's kind of our next goal going forward, is to provide this information to more stakeholders, more members of the community.
Now, we were also going to have Nikki on with us. Amy, tell us a little bit about Nikki, since she's not able to join us after all, and kind of what role she's helping to play in the design team. And maybe that might even be a good transition into where you guys are heading next.
Yeah. So Nikki has been involved kind of throughout the whole process, as she's been able to, and more so recently, but she is with the City of Grand Island, and we have an organization within the city that was started a couple of years ago with another planning process that they did. It's called Grow Grand Island. So basically just kind of a visioning process for how do we improve and grow Grand Island as a city. And one of their areas within that was focusing on beautification of the city and hike and bike trails. So she had very similar interests that to what we had, but just kind of a different reason for why she got into it. So an exciting part recently is that we kind of realized, wait, there's so many different groups trying to accomplish this same goal. Why don't we work together a little more collaboratively to expand our hike and bike trail system and not have all of these separate groups trying to accomplish the same thing. So she and I are trying to collaborate a little more effectively and work through that process to make it happen.
It's always, I mean, at some point, that may be helpful to you guys, because it really creates more backbone sharing that you can do. Mm-hmm. And so I love to see that. And it sounded like when I talked with Nikki a couple days ago, you guys had really got together and kind of started those conversations. So one of the things that I would say to you is, if we can help from the statewide side, just like we're doing with the AARP conversation, that might be something for us to talk about as well. So I'll mention that to Nikki. Tell us a little bit about Grow Grand Island. So Grand Island is, the reason I wanted to feature you guys as a city is because you're doing all this great stuff, and you're using the action team model, which really works effectively for a lot of our clients. But it's also because of the type of city that you are. So tell us a little bit about Grand Island and how, I'm assuming that's why it's Grow Grand Island.
Yeah, yep. So I guess in the last probably 5 years, Grand Island has really kind of started to grow. We're now at 50,000, which makes us the third largest city in Nebraska. We're also a very diverse community. We have a large Hispanic population and a whole bunch of different ethnicities from around the world. So we're very kind of metropolitan and really growing and expanding in many different ways. So I think the Grow Grand Island initiative was a way to kind of really organize how we want to grow as a city and what are the priorities for our growth. So it was really exciting to see that walking and biking were identified through the trail system as a priority for growth. So it's just kind of a matter of bringing more collaboration and more perspective from all these different groups together so that we can represent all of our different interests in one group or as one voice. So that should be pretty exciting.
Well, I think that that is a key to what you guys did too, because this process was really taking place for Amy and her team during the MPO planning process.
Mm-hmm.
And so we really worked very closely to try to coordinate that, and I think there was even input that you guys were able to take out of your summit that they were then able to use in the planning process. So so to all of our friends at Alta Planning and Jennifer Tool and Design, maybe that's a conversation that we have, is how to better align these community-driven action planning processes with the MPO planning processes that are happening.
Yeah, the timing of that was actually perfect. We were really fortunate that they were doing their long-range transportation plan at the same time that we were planning for our summit. So I went to several of their meetings and kind of brought in our voice and our perspective. And I'm pretty sure that having that represented was a big difference maker. Had we not been there, I don't think walking and biking would have gotten any or if all, as much attention as it does have now because we were involved. So that was really exciting for us.
Excellent. Well, Amy, what are you looking forward to then over as you kind of continue your implementation? What are things that you're looking forward to or that you guys have on your horizon right now?
Yeah, right now kind of our two main focuses are trying to pass a complete streets policy for the city of Grand Island. So that's kind of our big goal this summer and into the fall. And then with the hike and bike trails, we're hoping to get our bike ped subcommittee of the MPO kind of up and running, and that's probably where we're going to be housing a lot of our work, I'll probably be represented on that subcommittee. So the action team that we did have here is probably going to be merged within that under one umbrella. So our goal now with that subcommittee is to do a bike ped master plan. So we're going to be sending out proposals or funding requests to have a consultant put this plan together. So that's kind of our next big goal. And once we have that plan in place, we'll hopefully be able to do some actual on-the-ground projects. So that is kind of our two big goals coming up that we're working on.
Excellent. Amy, one of the other things that I want to recognize Amy for is she was one of the first fellows in the America Walks College. So Amy has, like I said, she's just an all-star in this work, and I can't say that enough because you really have totally plugged in and learned as much as you can about this stuff. And so it's just really amazing to see that energy and belief and vision that you bring to it, and congratulations on the Walking College thing. You guys were also selected as a community to participate in another program this year. Tell us about what that was.
Yeah, so we also participated in what's called the Walkability Action Institute. They had one last year that was for state teams, and then this year they invited MPO teams from across the country. So part of our action team decided to apply. So we were selected as one of the 10 from across the country, and we were able to go at the end of April. They had a 2-day training in Atlanta, Georgia. So we went to that, and out of that work, we had to create an action plan. So rather than create kind of two different plans, we're hoping to use this one action plan to help drive our work forward. So we just submitted that last Friday, and we'll be moving forward from there.
That is awesome. Amy, I am not seeing any questions. I do see that we have some participants that are watching. John, are you seeing questions on your side? Okay, I don't think we're seeing any there. All right, excellent. Well, listen, Amy,
Hey,
I
Jeremy.
know. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, there haven't been any questions, but I'd like to ask her a question.
Yeah.
Amy, is there any questions that you have for Jeremy about next steps or things that are coming up? He's kind of put you on the spot this afternoon. I was wondering if you had any questions for him about some stuff where he might be able to be on the hot seat. And if not, that's okay. I just wondered.
No, I think that's valid. I guess one kind of question that I've been having, so the action team model we've been using has been great, but it's kind of been evolving over time and realizing that maybe the owner of the teams might need to change. So that's kind of happened recently with the Bike Ped subcommittee. So I guess, do you have advice moving forward with our action teams as far as when do we kind of know that they've outlived their usefulness and it might be time to create them into something else? I don't know if that's easy to answer.
No, that's a great question, and one of the reasons that you guys have that question is because unlike the organizational strategic planning that we do, where we're really creating, it's kind of a 3 to 5 year strategic plan, and then you do that, and then you do the next one, and then you do the next one. For you guys, it's it's tied to the grant, and where do you take the grant? So there's a couple different things that I would say. The first is there are going to be some teams that it's okay to have them owned by somebody else. So, for example, maybe more of the legislative work, maybe you guys at the health department are not the owner, but that's driven by Grow Grand Island or something like that. So I think that the team model actually gives you the ability to kind of assess who does own the bulk of a team's work and who can take that lead. Now, for you guys, you've got a lot of education stuff that falls into your purview, and so I can see like part of the education and encouragement stuff where you guys are taking more of the lead.
Yeah.
I think the real question is, when does the original design team, who has become your leadership team, if you will, when do they or do they ever dissolve?
Yeah.
And I think that comes back to where does the community want to go next? And so maybe what you do, Amy, your guys' summit was in November of last year. Maybe in November of this year, you have a similar meeting, but it is more geared toward, are we going to take more action as a group, or are we comfortable with where this is heading? And my advice to you is any way that you guys can take the question you're asking back to the community on a yearly basis will really help you in determining where to house things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there was some kind of question of, does it have to be within our kind of grant work, or is it okay to let it be somewhere else? And that was just kind of a growing pain, I guess, of just trying to figure out what makes the most sense for our community and for our teams. So I think with our recent change, we're just kind of learning what's working and what makes the most sense.
Well, so there's an interesting part of this, Amy, that I'm really kind of thinking out loud here. There is an opportunity for other health departments where they can bring on a new community. And so maybe your opportunity in year 3 and year 4, and I totally, well, yeah, this is fine. It's a brainstorm. But maybe your opportunity in year 3 or year 4 is to hold another summit with Grand Island that addresses the longevity of what you guys are doing. So it kind of is like, let's check in on what we did last time, see how we're doing, and then take that to the next level and ask the question, how do we want to move this forward? Do we want to do it where it's Grow Grand Island who's doing it? And the reason that I say that, or it's you guys, I'm just throwing out examples, or it's the city or the school.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Hastings is a good example of this, of the ultimate of where you could take that conversation from the health department's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So Hastings, when they did their summit, it was called the Healthy Hastings Summit.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really geared toward anything that had to do with increasing overall health. And so what they did is they've got, their team is called the Healthy Hastings Group, I think, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they used it as a way to create themselves a strategic plan. Now they can take that plan of action that is more around health. So walking plays a little bit of a role, but it's like, I mean, they had chicken coops, all kinds of stuff. It was
Yeah.
amazing. Absolutely amazing stuff. But they're using that as their guide, and now they're going to be able to go after funding for that. So that may be something that the health department, working with groups like Grow Grand Island, for example, that might be your guys' next step.
Mm-hmm.
Just some ideas off the top of my head. I hope that's none of
Yeah.
those were out of line. Excellent. Well, listen, we have went a little longer than planned. I know we started a little late. My apologies that Nikki was not able to join us. I'll make a commitment here that we'll get Nikki on a program here soon and talk about Grow Grand Island and what they're doing. Amy, I really appreciate you taking time and stopping by and having a cup of coffee with us and talking and sharing your guys' story with us. I've actually got a handout that I'm going to be sharing next week, Amy. It's the story that we wrote for the CDC that they chose to use a different story. But we're still going to be taking that with us and promoting that in California at the Peds Count Conference. So you can stop by our booth if you're at the Peds Count Conference next week, and I'll be sharing some of that material and some more successes from the Nebraska Walkable Communities Project. Stay tuned to our Facebook and Twitter for more updates on Coffee with Jeremy and different people who will be coming on to talk about how they're using collaboration to take their work to the next level. I really do want to give just a quick shout out. I know I'm running over time, Amy, sorry. But I do want to give a quick shout out to the people in LA who are right now facing another gun tragedy. And another shooting tragedy. And so I just wanted to ask people to keep them in your thoughts and to stay abreast of what's happening out there. It's really important that in order to have collaborative dialogue about issues, you have to be able to know what's happening. And so stay tuned to that and be thinking of the people who are involved in that. And now back to you, Amy. Thank you again for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Any final thoughts you want to share with our viewers before we leave today?
Just that it is a process that works, and you can have some great success with it if you keep moving forward with it. So thanks for having me.
Excellent, Amy. Well, you did really great. Let's give Amy a big round of applause, everybody. And fantastic. Excellent. Well, again, thank you, Amy. Thank you to John and SG Mediagroup, our company that takes care of all of your virtual collaborative needs. And you can feel free to always find more information about SG Mediagroup at sgmediagroup.com and check out CoffeeWithJeremy.tv and sgendeavors.com for all of your consulting needs. Use collaboration to create change and take action. Thanks so much for joining. Have a great day.